Hello and welcome to episode 20 of There's Still Time, the AFTN podcast. We recorded this before the defeat in San Jose. Sorry, the win in San Jose, thanks to Eric Hurtado's wonderful control when he was through in the last minute.
Yeah.
Or the draw in San Jose, where unfortunately the mass brawl in the pitch overshadowed everything when Joe Cannon ran on, punched Brad Knighton and said, "This is my position." But however it played out at Buckshaw, whether I got bitten by termites or not, we're back for episode 20. And we have the same motley crew that we had before, with my beautiful bearded, mocha-coloured co-host, Steve.
Hello, everybody.
The Mocha Player of the Week.
Yes. I'm talking of players of the week. Player of every week, international playboy and nude model since we last spoke, Jay Duke.
Hello, Michael. Nice to be here again.
I wasn't really pleased that the staple covered your whole bottom bit, but, well, it was nice what you had.
The extra large alligator clip.
Yeah, was that what it was?
Yeah.
Snappy.
Yeah.
Talking of snappy, someone who's always there with his snappy response is Steven Lamothe.
Oh, you put me on the spot now.
Talking of spots, someone who's sitting here in his spotted underwear because he's waving it around his head with his shoe. One of many people in Curva Collective, not a head honcho, Zachary Meisenhamer.
What's up?
Now, we forgot to mention in the last podcast, we're actually recorded episode 19 and episode 20 out in the interior because we thought we'd take AFTN out to the community. So we've driven a long, long way to Langley and we're recording in a church. Hopefully, we do not all burn while we're recording this, but we could go down in flames like the Whitecaps season. Which brings us to our first topic of the night, the Whitecaps season. Gentlemen, do you think the Caps have underperformed, overperformed, I know I'm joking with that one, or are they where you expected them to be at this stage of the season, fighting for their playoff lives?
Well, I think you have to hold them up to their own objectives, and so I think we obviously underperformed in the Voyageurs Cup because we did not win it, and we definitely could have, and more importantly, should have. So I think we've underperformed in that competition. I think in the league, we are underperforming at the moment. That, you know, the season could end on a high. On form, it's not feeling like that's going to happen necessarily, but I think at the moment, I think most people would say we've underperformed because we expect the progression to be even further ahead, and the Cascadia Cup's still out there, so that's something that still has to be decided. I think we're on course or maybe underperforming in that competition.
Do you think it will be Seattle or Portland?
I would love for us to go runner and home and away. Obviously, I'd love to win. We'd love to win the Cascadia Cup at home, I think, but it would be fun to win it in Seattle again, like the last time we won it. Was anyone there last time we won it? Yeah, were you there?
No, I thought you were going to say in Seattle this time.
Well, who's going this time?
I at the moment I'm planning on going, but I don't. It's a lot of money. I'm going to wait and see. Actually,
I think the beauty of winning it there would be.
Don't you get to the games for free?
Wednesday, probably 150 people. Like
it'll be at least 300. 250. 300. Yeah.
See, I think that's going to be a really tough one to get folk down for because it's midweek.
Well, there's already like at least 200 to 250 tickets sold.
And the Southsiders are flying a plane down there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Not the Southsiders, but yeah. Group of
some members of the Southsiders are maybe going to join the Mile High Club, although they've only got 30 minutes. I know some of them. It's probably more than enough time for them.
Wings over Cascadia. Is that what it's called? The trip?
Yep.
And then obviously the final goal to host a home cup match in MLS is still
up for grabs.
Up for grabs. Yeah.
So Stephen, I mean, how do you see this season going? Are you disappointed
Yeah, I'm pretty disappointed myself. I think that when you look at the starting lineup from what could have been at the start of the year to now, I think other than the first 2 victories is kind of a slow start after that. And then really other than one victory in New York in a stretch of schedule where we should have got results being, was it June or July?
June.
June was when we had our great month. That was 4 wins.
Well, it wasn't a great month. It was DC United, Chivas.
It was great results wise.
New England. Right. It was great
Points
results
wise.
wise with one good victory. That being the New York victory, right?
Yeah.
So I think, basically they beat the bottom dwellers and then one good game and then
Which they should have lost too, because there were a couple chances at the end that were just like.
well, should have, it's on the road, you take your chances, you get the victory, all power to them for that. But other than that, there's a scattered good victory here and there, essentially, right? So I think it's been totally underwhelming as far as that goes.
And Jay, I mentioned in the last podcast, are we a team that's only had one good month, being June, or have we just underperformed, or did that month make us think we were actually a better team than we were?
Well, I think I would like to go back to even something that we talked about the last time I was on the podcast when we were after the Champions League final. And that's that we were talking about how that they were progressing and that the results weren't quite there. And I'm okay if the results quite aren't there as long as I can see a progression and I can see where they're going with it. And I could see that. I remember, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, that game in Houston, when Houston had that just unreal home streak going, and we went down there and we played fantastic. We should have won that game. Mm-hmm. And there was a few even road games throughout that stretch and some home games that, we were getting draws instead of wins, that we looked really good though, just everything wasn't quite clicking. And then it seemed like everything started to click. And in June, we had a great month. And then I'm as baffled as probably Martin Rennie seems to be with what happened. Because in his defense, they'll never say this, but we've had a pretty tough time with injuries, especially in the back line. The fact that we haven't been leaking more goals because we're playing with a third and fourth or fourth and fifth, center back pairing is pretty amazing. So they've had their challenges. Not that everybody else hasn't, but we've had it pretty tough too when your number one, allegedly, center back goes down in the 6th minute. They're certainly underperforming, but the problem is that it's downhill again. And that's the thing that's really concerning. And I'm all for sticking behind a guy like Martin Rennie. If we can say, look, he's learning, this is what he's good at, this is where we're progressing, and I can see things taking shape. But I can't see what it is. I don't know what it is.
That's a good point, because he's been in 2 years, and obviously 2 years isn't a long time to get a whole new ethos in a football club. Maybe he does deserve another year, but he has to show that he's learning, and I agree, he doesn't seem to be giving out anything that makes you think that he is learning from his mistakes. He's just making the same mistakes that he made last year again this year.
And Jay makes a good point with the start of the year is that, the results weren't necessarily there, but there was that build up. So having those results in June made it like, we were going over something. We were getting past, even though they were games we should have won other than the New York one, it was still getting over some sort of hump and progressing. And then from that moment forward, what's happened.
The thing is, I can't understand is the fact that they can't get a finger on why this team plays so differently on the road. To be honest, it looks like they sometimes when they play on the road is like they don't even. This team has just got put together and they've never trained at all together. And they've trained all year, right? They've spent a full preseason together, and that's what's baffling to me that they have never. Sometimes they don't look like a team at all, and they look like a bunch of individuals who are trying to get forward or backwards or defend or whatever. They seem scrambly at sometimes on the back end. So I don't know. It's been a big disappointment for me. Maybe the fact that if he hadn't made the playoffs last year, then we wouldn't have that many high expectations. But because he made the playoffs last year, there are those high expectations on him this year.
Especially when you look to think that you have a stronger squad.
Yeah.
But so much is made of the fact that in MLS it's hard to win on the road, and it's not. I started to look at some stats earlier in the season, and other teams are doing it pretty regularly. The top consistent teams are going and playing on the road, and even when they're not getting results, if you watch the games, they're playing attacking football, and there's not a huge difference between how they play at home and how they play away. And the Whitecaps have shown it a little bit. Like New York was one of the games where after the Montreal game, whether someone sat down maybe with Rennie and said, look, this is the month, if you don't go and do it this month, you're out the door. And we saw a whole different positive attitude in New York, in Seattle, in Kansas City.
Yeah.
I mean, there were 3 away games. DC to a certain extent, but it was hard because it's a weaker team. But against 3 top teams, they actually played aggressive. They went and attacked, and they got some results. And it seems to be when they sit back, that's when they struggle.
And it was fun to watch, right? It was fun
that's
to
the thing as well.
And, that's when we're going to be watching on TV, because here we're going to be there, right? So,
Yeah.
And
you're wanting people at home to be watching those games and thinking, hey, they play good football, I'd like to go to the next game at BC Place. And there was a big buzz about the club at that time of year. The media were getting behind them, and all the talk about, can the Whitecaps become the second team in the city?
And then the people were also mentioning supporter shield. They were like,
that
which
seemed
was
to be
like
a kiss of
drastically,
death,
like, I don't know, I never got that even when they started talking about it. Supporter shield, like so early in the season, they still were not playing it totally up to where they should be. But I think they were overshooting this team where they were at that point.
Well, the Shield did come visit us. So.
Oh yeah.
They were though in second in the West, halfway-ish through the season.
It was before the Colorado game. They were in second place.
I agree with you. They were never a team that was going to compete for the Supporters Shield, but they were second in the West. Only a couple, I think it was like 3 or 4 points back.
And they had a game in hand, and
So I can see why people were optimistic at the time about it, but I don't know what's happened that it's been just a complete. I don't know. Has anything happened since June, Zach, that you think has caused the team to be affected in such a way?
Is this time for the Alain Rochette segment?
well, let's talk about that. The turning point. You can give a turning point off the field, or you can give a turning point on the field. It's up to you. What do you think is the turning point of this season? Me personally, I'm going to put it down to the Philadelphia game when we lost the unbeaten streak, and I'm going to put it specifically to June Marcus Davidson's headbutt, where we went down 10 men. I don't know if it would have made a difference because they were still attacking. They actually maybe played better without June on the field, but did that? Personally, I say that's on field was the turning point. What do you guys think? On field or off field turning point of the season?
Well, it broke a magic bubble, right? We were undefeated at home.
Yeah.
It was like this magic thing that we had, and that made us. Have we won since? Yeah, we won one at home since.
beat
San Jose.
So it's like it popped.
The magic was gone. The unicorns left the BC Place and everything like that.
Yeah, because before that, you had that feeling every time, right? There was that comfort in, we're up, we're going to win. It's a given, right? It just had that feel to it, and that was gone at that point.
That was a pretty depressing match.
Yeah.
I mean, we got rid of some dead weight in the left back slot. Do you think that had anything?
Honestly, Michael, why? Oh, because I think you'll bring up some valid points. Why were you happy to see Alain go?
I was just happy to see him go with the way that he played on the road. He was a different player on the road, and you need a player.
Both fullbacks were different players.
Both are, and you need fullbacks that are going to play the same home and away. And Rennie had clearly lost.
Is that
faith in him.
coaching? So here's the
it
thing for
probably
me:
is
if you
coaching
get a
and
horse
tactics.
race, if you get a racehorse, right, and you say, "Here, carry this Budweiser wagon around town." Eventually, that racehorse is going to get sick and tired of carrying that Budweiser around town, right? So,
or any other beer.
Yeah, sorry, but Rochat was like a player with a lot of skill, and so is YP Lee. They're skilled guys. These are guys that have, tactfully better players than we've traditionally seen
And he's
in
gonna
North
play now in a
America.
better league as
and
well.
they want to play that way. And you're saying, here's what we want you to do: drop a 7-yard hoof up the field. Get it hooked.
Back to horses.
But that's what you're asking them to do, right? And then go, why are they not playing up to their potential, right?
Let me ask you this then Michael. How many games did you see that Alain Rochat was subpar? Not just average, not just like, oh, well, that'll do. Because let's be honest,
Yeah.
Jordan Harvey on his best day is generally average.
Yeah, he's not Alan Shaw. It's like I'm kind of just winding Zach up a little bit, but I did think at the time it wasn't as bad a move. He maybe had 2 or 3 subpar games. I just felt Rennie had lost kind of belief in him, and as soon as the manager does that with a player, there's not really any coming back. And he's clearly done that with Davison as well. Whether he's punishing him because that probably is the big turning point, that headbutt, but a lot of the results we were getting before that Philadelphia game, I think they were covering the cracks up because we didn't play well. We were lucky against New England. They got the guy sent off and we came back and won that. That was probably going to be our first home defeat. But it wasn't, and you have to take what played out, and it was that headbutt. The Rochat thing, I don't know whether that could be put down as a turning point though.
It could be off the pitch turning point.
It
'cause
could
chemistry.
be with some of the players maybe, because the players are maybe starting to think, well, he's a really good player. They've let him go.
And he was well liked by
Yeah.
some people in the dressing room, especially like the Kofis and I think the Tybers and
Because there must have been a spell as well that they maybe thought, if we don't play well, we're out. And maybe that coincided with them starting to play well and getting the results at the same time.
Even some of those big wins, like the same time you're talking about, the 2-0 Seattle win, which may have been the best, certainly that was the best atmosphere of the year, had a blast.
Yeah.
It was a game that we could have lost. Like Brad Knighton made 5 alarm saves to keep us in that game. And that's one of the games that we were talking about where your keeper sometimes steals you some points or whatever. It looks great on paper. 2-0 Cascadia at home, first ever. We didn't really play all that well when you really consider it. Our really truly best full, closest to 90-minute full performances came way earlier in the season than that.
Yeah. Like you said, that Houston game, that was a great performance. The LA game that we won as well, that was kind of the turning point for the season going well, apart from the Voyageurs Cup. But on a league basis, that win was like one of the monkeys off the back. But we were lucky in that because I can't remember who it was now, but LA guy missed a header just before we scored. It was
Zardes.
Was it? I
don't know.
I think it was one of the defenders. He had a header, the ball came in, and he put it wide.
Gonzalez.
It's like a free header.
If that had gone in, I'm not sure we would have come back and won that. And losing that and then losing the Voyageurs Cup, that could have been the end of Rennie there and then. But I think the LA win gave him the month of June, and then he turned it round in June. But one of the questions I posed in the article that we wrote last week was, when the team plays badly, is it the manager? Is it the players? They both have to take responsibility. It's always the manager that the buck stops with him, because you look around the world and it's the managers that get the can. But is that fair?
Well, if the players stink, then it's the manager that brought them in too.
Yeah.
So I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's the manager's fault in the end. And I see what your point is that if we just, to go back to your racing horses here, if you don't got the horses to play in the race, I don't care how good of a manager you are, and that's why so many guys think that Teeter could have done so much better here, is that was just a really crappy team that we had.
Yeah.
They weren't very good. So yeah, they were never going to play that well.
But they were picked by Teeter. Some of the players.
So yeah, it's got to end with Martin in the end. But a lot of it is not just it's not just that they're losing. It's like how they're losing and what's happening in between. And I don't know if with this most recent game that we've seen a lot of lineup shuffling and trying different things, and we're still not sure. And everybody keeps talking about the chemistry and what's the identity of this team. I don't know what it is. I can't tell you what it is. We have a bunch of different pieces that all kind of fit into some guys are athletic, a couple guys are technical. I still have hope for Kobayashi. I don't know why, but I've always thought that he's a really quality guy that could do really well, but he's purely a technical player. That's all he is. And if you put him with a bunch of athletic guys that can't do anything on the ball. The goal that he scored was a perfect example of that. Two guys with him, knew exactly what was going on. Little triangle, around, bang, bang, bang. Real smart run, fools the defender, ball comes into him, side foot at home. Yeah, beautiful.
Totally
and so if you're the manager, how are you going to play, right? Like, are you going to set up triangles all over the field and play that style of football?
When you have Hurtado and Watson on the other side who may not necessarily be...
So what are you going to do? What are you going to create, right? And that's, to me, so it comes down to the manager in that sense. You're either putting your players in a position to succeed, you're bringing in the wrong players, you're bringing in the wrong mix. Like, we really had 3 center backs and 3 center mids and 2 center forwards on the pitch last match, right? So it's like, what are you trying to create here? And then what kind of style of play are you gonna incorporate into that lineup, right? So to me, it just has to go to the manager.
I mean, there was a big thing made last year, too many changes, not going to repeat that mistake. Then this year, we only bring in a goalkeeper. Was that the right thing?
No, see, that's where we were talking about this in the last podcast. It's, you can say, oh, last year was all these changes and it caused all these problems. Well, this year I think we've seen where even one significant change can cause similar unrest, or at least has affected our form in a similar way. At least to some significant degree.
And when you get to the human aspect of it, right? Because these guys are all like have lives and families and stuff. You're talking about a guy coming from Europe who's not used to this, and you can say, you know, his agent should explain blah blah blah, all these sorts of things. But you're coming into a different culture where you can get traded, and not only traded, but across the country. And then you've got
with no save whatsoever.
7 month pregnant, or was she 8 months?
No, she was ready to drop.
Yeah. So you throw all that in there. And you know, if something happens to like a family member or something and I go to work that day, I'm not going to perform at my best because I'm going to have things in my head. My aunt just died or whatever, right? I'm not going to perform at my best. So you've put all those players in that situation where my mate has been shipped across the country with his pregnant wife staying here, separating that family. You've upset him, you've upset her. Your mates are upset. Right? Yeah. So they're going to react to that because you're humans. Right? And Rennie is like, you know, Joe's psychologist. You would think he would be a key cog in that.
Well,
right?
he did it the year before as well.
Yeah. Eric's wife was...
So that I'd like to turn this question back to you guys. And is that if that's what... all the different managers around the different league all have their strengths and weaknesses... What is the one thing that Rennie hangs his hat on? And it seems to be that it's his psychological approach to training and to the game and to all that. Is he even doing that job well? Like, if that's the one thing that he can say, this is why I'm better than everybody else. It's not talent acquisition. It's not tactical analysis. It's the psychology. It's getting the most out of every single one of your players. Can you go down our roster and say, here are our players who have played way better than they've ever played before?
There's not very many at all.
You could even say the negatives may even outnumber the positives.
Yeah.
Which is when we've talked about, Zach and I have talked about Sam and my concern with I'd rather not see Sam sign because I don't have that confidence in him as that sort of person. Is he going to get the best out of Sam, or are we looking at Ashton Morgan Part 2 where maybe when he's 24 he'll start looking good again, right? Like, are we going to crush him as a player and then hope he's got the strength and willpower to recreate himself as a mid-20 something or what, right?
Well, I mean, Rennie, he definitely seems good at the psychological side of the game. It's the big thing that he hangs his hat on. It's not going to work for all players, and he seems to like breaking players down like he did with Tiber, and it was a success. He's probably tried to do it with some others that hasn't been a success, and that's why they've gone. And if he does try to do it with, say, someone like Sam or one of the young guys that come through, it could be something that like ends their top career. But he obviously must have something because he's kind of convinced Eric Hurtado that he can play MLS.
No, okay. I don't think he really broke Tiber down.
I agree with that. I don't get that.
Martin's philosophy is that's more of a negative philosophy. His philosophy is more of a positive philosophy of how do we build everyone up. And it's extremely difficult juggling act because you can only have 18 players in the match day squad. You can only have 11 in the starting lineup, and yet you have a 30-player roster. So for him, it's how can I encourage best these 30 players or 27 players, whatever it is, at a time, like when they're all in these different places. How can I keep the morale? How can I keep them in a positive frame of mind? The best as possible, and you're going to have kind of ups and downs to that, and yeah.
The coaching staff essentially breaking Tybert down was essentially telling Tybert he was playing like crap, and he better play better, or else he's going to be cut. And that's not really breaking it down anybody. That's not helping somebody.
Maybe he broke down after he heard that.
Yeah. So that's the other thing too about and I've heard, I think Peter talk about it recently in the last couple of weeks or so, or Jason DeVos actually and Luke Weilman, but. One of the great things about Rennie is it's great when you talk to them individually or you talk to players because you hear the different perspective. Is Rennie works with, like, he's obviously the guy who has to make the final decision, but he works. It's a team. His coaching staff, so they'll have conversations where they're like, okay, what do you think when we were in crisis at center back? Okay, here's an example of one that I heard about. We're in crisis at center back. Who thinks Jun can fill in? Who thinks Tommy Heineman's a good, like, not fill in, but like an emergency center back, right? And
me have to see them play that friendly for the rest.
So they have these conversations, and then you hear, okay, this coach is this perspective, this coach is this perspective, but this coach is this perspective, and so ultimately Martin says, and sometimes it's great because they're not. Sometimes you get 3 perspectives or 4 perspectives if you include Jake in that, right? And so I think that has been beneficial, and I think part of me wonders how much of some of these decisions have been like all Martin, or Martin saying, okay, both Paul and Carl are really big on this, or both Paul and Carl are really see the positive to that. I'm gonna go with that, as opposed to like his
you hope that's how he does it, and
he's still making the decision.
I know,
that Paul and Carl are.
And ultimately, he'll be accountable for that.
Oh yeah, but like one thing, like to answer Jay's question, whenever you sit and you listen to Martin speak, he is captivating. Mm-hmm. It's like we've been at a lot of things where he's like done little chats with the media, or he's done things with fans, and you just have to spend 5-10 minutes in the room with him, and you're kind of like eating out of his hand. He is such a great speaker, and you can kind of understand, like, when all these players came from Carolina and they were like, yeah, we'd go anywhere that Martin want to support him and stuff. It's partly because he's a sales guy, and I was in sales myself back in Scotland for a while, and it's like you have to have that patter.
That's a tough gig.
Yeah, but you have to have that patter. You have to have the building the rapport and stuff, and that's what he does, and he's very captivating.
So how does that translate? How does that translate though on the pitch? Then is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is it like he can be as a media guy, as a coach dealing with the media and stuff? Yeah, he's wonderful. Like, you know, he speaks really well. He all that kind of stuff. But if it isn't resulting in your marginal players that you've signed because you're not a great talent acquisition guy or whatever your weaknesses are, if you can't turn those marginal guys into all really giving their all and really buying into what you're selling, and you guys are, you know, hitting outside your weight class, then what's the point? If that's your thing and it doesn't work.
True. There's a kind of folklore story. I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently years ago in Scotland, this player was injured. He had a concussion. They had no subs left. He was off the pitch. So the manager was just like, okay, who are you? And doing all the tests. He's like, I don't know who I am. So he told his assistant coach, put him back on the pitch, tell him he's Pelly. And that's kind of how I think Martin works. He tells players how they're good. He builds up their confidence. But ultimately, if they haven't got the skill, they are going to be let down. And I think we've seen that with too many players this year.
Well, I think, you know, that works for a certain level, right? It's like, you know, you see US is big with the NCAA, and Caleb, of course, being, you know, the example of the exception that makes the rule. But how many coaches can't make that leap? At some point, you've reached your plateau right? Where, yeah, a younger guy or a guy who's got this much talent is going to believe he's this much, right? But you can't go to Wayne Gretzky for lack of a Canadian soccer example, so I'll have to use a hockey example because, Sidney Jackson, right? But anyway, go to that top player and say, you're so good, you're way better than you think you are, right? Because that's not going to work at a certain level, because someone's going to have a strong enough ego, a healthy enough self-confidence that, your smoke's not going far up my ass.
And I think that is spirit, like you've hit the nail on the head there at a certain level. Yeah. Like Rennie's had a lot of success in the lower levels because this stuff works. I've seen it myself. Like back in East 5, we won promotion in 2002 with a terrible squad. But we actually had a manager very much like Martin Rennie. He had all these motivational things up in the dressing room. It was all about psychological things. And he had them playing as a team. He had them believing in themselves. And they got the job done. And that's at a lower level. Yeah. But when you're then up against better players, it doesn't work.
And not only just better players technically, but we're talking about professionals.
Yeah.
We're talking about, Robbie Keane, and we're talking about, guys who have done it before. Yeah. They know what it takes to win, and they know if they go down or they have a whole bunch of whippersnappers barking up their butt on the field, they're not going to get rattled by it and you go, oh, well, I guess we'll pack her in today.
Yeah.
And like Keane gets a hard time here because a lot of folk think he's arrogant, and he is.
He is, but he's good.
Yeah. Because after the recent game here, he was being interviewed and he was like, "You weren't given an assist for that goal."
Yeah.
I was like, doesn't matter. I've got 9 anyway.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of arrogance you need.
Well, when we got rid of Leading Win, and then when he came here and people were all like, "I'm glad we got rid of him because I hated it. He's such an ass." And it's like, that's what you want. Yeah. I want 11 guys on the pitch that 19 or 18 other cities are gonna hate those freaking 11 guys because they're so hard to play. They're so freaking arrogant and confident and strut around, and they never lose, right? Because they walk around like that, right? I would take Keane for sure. I'd take, no question asked. Yeah, he's a prick when he's not playing for us, but put him in a Whitecap jersey, and hey, I'm a big fan.
Would you take Ferreira though?
No, and that's funny because I actually was thinking of those sorts of things the other day, and for whatever reason, I guess I was watching that Dallas match, but. No, I wouldn't. Like, there's a certain line where you have to say, how can you cheer for that? Like,
what about Perez? I feel like that with Perez. Ferreira, I would maybe take, but Perez for me.
I would not take those. Neither.
Both of those guys.
Yeah. Both those guys to me are so like below a moral, ethical level. I can understand like drawing attention to things, like the ref. He's pulling my shirt, right? I can see drawing attention to a foul. Okay. Which is why I don't have issue with Camilo. I take issue with like flat out dives, fake.
But Camilo has done that too.
Okay, yeah, and so
not untouched though. And I've put that offer out there on Facebook and Twitter and everything. Show me. Somebody show me. Nobody can. Nobody can show me a dog.
Okay, but to be fair, and I'm not saying I disagree with you, Steve, in terms of wanting to support that, but that's an ethnocentric perspective. I can't access it anymore, but during the 2010 World Cup, I wrote a blog for the Sun or whatever about this. Like, to do those things, so in Panama or in, where's David Ferrer from Colombia?
Oh yeah, I'm not from Panama though.
No, I'm just saying.
I'm saying me and the Whitecaps.
No, I know, but to say, so they are living out their culture.
Yeah.
In those cultures,
yeah.
If you can cheat or con the referee, you are considered clever, and that's a positive thing.
Right.
If you get caught, you get caught.
Yeah.
But if you can cheat the referee, you are clever. It's a positive attribute.
Sure.
So to say that's...
And if you stick a straw in a cow's neck and drink its blood in some cultures, it's what I'm talking about. That's talking about me.
That's nothing to do with football. That has nothing to do with football. And there's football in that culture, and there's football in our culture. And so I think that's a difficult thing. I'm not saying I disagree with you in terms of wanting to support that or wanting that in our club. But we got to be careful when we're talking about.
I don't think so. I think we need to dictate what we would cheer for, and if Ferreira signed with
for our club,
I wouldn't support him.
I also saw I know this is probably we're way off topic, but when just before the Dallas game, Pete Shad was talking to the play-by-play guy, and he made a big point about how Ferreira has had a really tough year. He's the most fouled player in the MLS, and like. I was like wishing Pete Shad would say, Well, there's a reason he's the most foul player. It's because he's like, even when guys aren't touching him, he's falling to the ground.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the MLS refs are buying it all over the place.
Yeah.
That it kind of brings around an interesting point then. Do you want the Whitecaps to win at all costs, or do you want them to have a moral obligation to play the game properly? For me, I don't care how they win, as long as they get the win.
What was the Charles BK dive? Was it...
Oh, Butu?
Yeah.
Wesley Charles?
Was it Wesley?
Yeah, Wesley Charles.
Oh.
Wait, dive?
The dive right in front of
Oh, it was BK.
It was BK, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that was painful.
Yeah, that was. Swangard?
Yeah.
Was it in the cup?
It was in the cup.
Yeah.
He so dove, and it was so painful, and it's like, to this
Did he
day.
get booked? No, he didn't get booked.
No, he didn't get booked. We got the penalty.
Oh, yeah.
He
Okay.
scored on the penalty.
So, Jamie, would you want a team that just wins?
That's I'm gonna say yes. I like win at all costs. I don't care. But I also wouldn't take David Ferreira. So maybe I guess the real answer is no. I wouldn't take Ferreira, and quite frankly, I wouldn't take Lenhart either. I think he is just a complete. I like his style. I like a guy who gets stuck in and will go for every header. But not only does he dive and flop around and all that kind of stuff, if you're gonna play that tough guy thing, play the tough guy thing. Mm-hmm. And when you get a little bit of an elbow back, suck it up.
Yeah,
because don't
whine
whine and flop around and dive. And in addition to that, he's done some pretty nasty stuff, like intent to injure guys. And that's not what I'm about. What I did like was when Argentinian guy that we Bonjour last year. You remember when he walked up to Wando?
Yeah.
It was Wando, I believe. He was coming in and he was on just an unreal hot streak. And Bonjour was in a real tough spot, and he just we're trying to do shoulder to shoulder there, ref. Sorry, and he just plowed right through his solar plex. Yeah. Love it. Yeah. No problem with that. And that's illegal.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. But that's when it all costs. And I think there's a line there. I want people to put it all out for the club, for the crest, for their teammates. But I don't want to see the intent of the game just get pissed on.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I was going to ask about, there's no point because we all know the answer, is which positions do we need to strengthen for next year? So we know it's the fullbacks, we know it's the midfield. But we've missed that in a Bonjour tackler. I know he wasn't a midfielder, but we need someone in the middle that is not afraid to put himself about, goes in hard but fair. Coker.
Go ahead, Leveron, right?
Yeah, look at Johnny in the Olympics, man. Look at him going against Spain and stuff. And I think right now it's a matter of learning the language, learning the culture. Because you look
he could do that
and
first?
You look at him at that age in 2012. And just. I can't remember who, it's the Olympics, so you remember certain names and whatnot because they're not all stars, or at least not yet. But one of the Honduran players getting taken out in that Spanish game, and him running right up into their 60-yard sprint to get in the face there.
Run or John?
Johnny run.
Johnny run.
Yeah. Everybody else jog.
Yeah. So he got right up there, right, and right in the face. And I think he's going to bring that to the squad. And I think when Jay's healthy and playing, and he'll get a sense of that, of what is culture here, what does it mean to play soccer in North America.
I think another guy,
northern North America,
another guy who has potential to do that in the midfield as well is Gersh Kofi.
Oh yeah.
He just needs to control his elbows a little bit more and not flail around a little when he's going up for those. So because the referees see that, and then that's when he gets carded and stuff like that. But I think he's got potential. He's got potential to be that guy who gets stuck in, be physical, and he actually doesn't go down easily either.
Yeah. No, but he also picks up a lot of bookings as has.
Well, that's because he's kind of out of control when he does go up in the air. If he could stay compact when he goes up in the air,
his timing is off a bit.
A little bit off.
Tackles once in a while.
But that happens with all young guys, right? So
if you keep Nigel and keep him in the middle of the park, he could do that to some degree too. Is that he will really get stuck in?
He made that tackle on Cronin earlier in San Jose, and he didn't get a card or anything. No supplementary discipline. and he made that guy go flying. It was a clean tackle.
I mean,
that was
to me, that's still tackle of the season. That's
it was a good tackle.
highlight of the season.
A lot of people, like especially in the UK, which was surprised me, was the horror tackle.
Oh, that's like the media. They
Sensationalist.
Yeah.
For the record, I think Johnny has deceptive pace.
Yeah, so do
He
I.
does.
Well, I don't understand the whole pace thing that keeps coming up. It's because his build, right?
That was a call.
He's too smooth, and that's why he makes it. When he's running fast, it makes it look like he's jogging because he's smooth.
He's also kind of like Andy in that he doesn't really need to run very much because he's in
smart.
the right position. Yeah. He's so intelligent for his position.
And let's compare him to other holding midfielders like June Marcus Davis. And how much pace does that guy have?
Yeah.
So
but he's in the right place at the right time.
Well, just because he hasn't moved for the last 20 minutes, he's still at the top of the box.
A lot of things are tactful too, right? And learning like where you are. So like plays, I can't remember the goal, but I know Johnny shut the guy down on the wing, and then the guy cut in and is like, why didn't you shut him down and play hard, whatever? And it's like, okay, so playing in a more cultured soccer background, right? What are you going to be taught? You're going to be taught to cut off that wing and force it back to the defenders of the center mid, right? So not having that support there might look the center back or the left back or the right back, whichever back is back there, might make them look bad because that support's not there, but he's done exactly what he's supposed to do, right? So now he needs to learn the same way Kenny need to learn that I'm not going to get great service here. So I need to adapt to that, right?
Or I don't have the other strikers around me that have a clue what's going on in my head.
Exactly. So I need to adapt to that, right? Because you see sometimes where he makes a little flick on and it's like, right? Well, what are you doing? Right? Why did you stop that run,
Okay, so we talked about the potential positions that we're going to...
dummy, and I have to do this one because I can't remember the match, but the dummy to the June Marcus Davidson, where June was first time ever I saw him within 20 yards of the attacking net, and Kenny dummied it, but June stopped on the 18-yard box, right? Do you remember that?
Because the invisible force field that they left behind.
And Kenny was like, what are you doing? Don't make that run that I'm going to see and then stop it where I can't see you, right?
Because they're just not used to it.
So we talked about the positions that we seek to strengthen. The big question is, and we talked about this a little earlier in the previous podcast as well, will Martin Rennie be here to make those changes? And we've already talked about whether everybody thinks about it. Most people think he's not going to be here because he's not going to be able to live up to what he's supposed to this year. Are there any coaching candidates that you think would be a good fit for this place? People have mentioned, obviously, the one Canadian guy that's available right now is Frank Yallop. I think you rumored that Jason Kreis was rumored.
Jason Kreis hasn't signed a contract yet with Real Salt Lake for next season, which has got everyone
rumoring that he's going somewhere else.
He can go somewhere else, but would you really want to leave Salt Lake to come to the Whitecaps?
If you're looking at the city, you're looking at cities, then maybe you would.
Oh, that's true.
Where you're living.
Yeah.
But okay, then you also got people have the rumor that Dominic Kinnear is going to go to San Jose at the end of the year. That makes Mark Watson available, who's done a really good job with San Jose at home.
If Watson took San Jose to
those are some of the options. Is there anybody else? Do you think they should get somebody outside MLS? Do you think it should be somebody from within MLS? I don't think it should be. Personally, I don't think it should be somebody from the lower leagues at all. I think they need to get somebody established. But who do you think?
I don't think they can. If we've seen anything from Leonard Doozy and the rest of the Whitecaps front office, they really do appear to listen to what the critics and everybody is saying, and it's like, okay, we made too many off-season changes, so we're not gonna make many next season, and okay, our DPs haven't been good, so I don't think we're gonna sign any more DPs. So you guys just don't worry about it. We're not gonna waste our money. And
I don't know how much it is in the media. I think part of it is just self-realization.
It's just self-evaluation.
And those are all things that we all kind of agree on. Yeah. So it's hard to necessarily to blame them. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that what is going to come out of this is going to say, look, we need to go and get ourselves an experienced guy. Probably an experienced guy from within the MLS or some guy who has MLS experience. And if not, somebody who has had some very serious experience in a European or maybe Central American like Mexico, but probably even not. Probably a European league or an MLS league. That's the only way they're going to go. They don't want to risk doing this other, we're going to try, building with this new coach again.
It's going to be tough to find anybody with really good MLS experience that isn't already with a club, I think.
Yeah.
And if they're not with a club, why are they not with a club?
Yeah.
And it could work if they have like somebody with experience at the top and then bring a young guy in, but then would it work because it's interfering and it hasn't worked with some other clubs? Jalop, I don't think is the ideal candidate now. I think he would maybe have been back in 2011. Now I don't think he is, but I think the pressure from the media here is going to talk about Jalop. That's all they're going to talk about for the next couple of weeks. Jalop's available, he's friends with Leonard Doozy, he's got experience, he'll come in. And it might be hard.
And you'll probably play the Canadians too.
Yeah. And you're saying they listen to the media. If the media build up a Jalop frenzy, it might be hard for them not to go with him.
Now, when I was mentioning candidates, you really shook your head at Mark Watson. Was there a reason why?
No, I just don't think he played. It was great to support him for the year he played here a few years ago, and I love and appreciate him. But I don't think I don't think he has experience for where we're at and where we need to grow to. I don't think this is a time. It's same with Dasso. I really love Dasso, and I think he's an awesome guy and done some great things with our national under 20 and stuff and whatever. I don't think this is the time for them here. I could see any of those three down the road maybe, but
who do you think? Do you have any ideas?
Well, personally,
obviously you think Rennie's going to stay. I think
Rennie's. Remind me, do we know, is he under contract? Is it a club option this year?
Somebody said a termination contract.
There's been rumours that he isn't on a contract at the end of this year, so they can get rid of him in December if they want.
Okay. So yeah, I think ideally he'll be back, but I think of all the names that I've heard and the people I've thought about, the one that I'm not necessarily like excited about for personal reasons, but the one I think who could maybe do a job here would be like a Bob Bradley. But I don't think Bob's going to leave Egypt on the verge of the World Cup or whatever, right?
No. Well, it depends if it develops into more chaos there, I guess.
That's true.
That he might want just to see this as a chance to get out.
Yeah.
How about that Montreal coach, Jesse Marsh?
Not a chance, no.
No chance?
No. I don't think he's
Is there anyone in the lower divisions, D2, D3, that would be worth a shot?
No.
I mean, who's the manager for Orlando? I couldn't even tell you who that is, but I mean, he's done well. Does he deserve a bigger shot?
No, it gets back to the same old scenario, right? Where you go into a league like that and you can spend or find, like the Chill, right? You've got a bunch of 28-year-old Brazilians and you...
We waited an hour and 50 minutes for the
Well, it's easier to go into a league where you can go, we've got this to offer, and put players into that place, which is what Orlando is, right? We might get the MLS, so we can sign all these guys with these dreams who might be a level above the other players in USL Pro.
And they're getting good attendance, so
yeah, exactly, right? Is there a bet that I would mention it? Well, I was going to say Tony Calistro could be the new Whitecap coach. He is the most successful coach in Canada.
How about Paul Marner?
Even I could.
Do we want someone to go drinking with the players?
They rumored Bruce Arena to TFC, and that was not because of any direct connection, but just that they could see.
Well, Wiki.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I just mean that there's not like anything pending. They don't. It's not like Arena hasn't said, "Oh, I'm out of here." Just that, like, especially if they could win another championship this year. So they've won 2 in a row. They could won 3. At some point, maybe he wants a challenge, and
well, that's a challenge.
TFC would be a challenge, but especially with all the salary that they've been shedding, you got an open cup. You got $25 million and tons of roster space.
Yeah.
So he could choose exactly what he wants with all the money in the world.
Unlimited DPs.
Limited somewhat in Vancouver, but he might see the same thing. We don't have the same roster thing, but Vancouver's always been that second tier of money spending, not the big guys, $8 million, $9 million, But I think it's been pretty clear that, hey, we'll spend money. If you want to spend money, you're gonna win us games. You're gonna get us really quality players. We'll be okay spending money. So I could see Bruce Arena saying, maybe I should give this a go.
I don't agree that we have spent money. I think we've kind of been a bit cheap. And I also think we've got a problem in that we're not going to get any big name players here because of the turf.
Yeah.
And they're not going to want to come. So that's always going to be to our detriment. And at the moment Toronto's got grass, whether they'll have it with all this stuff about the Argos going to play there, which would be hilarious. But I don't know, you can't see somebody like Arena, even with all that money at his disposal, leaving something like LA without maybe wanting to look at going into the international team. If Klinsmann was maybe to step down after
Bruce
the
already
World
done
Cup,
it, right? Once.
But this would be a good time for him to go back. Although he's getting on a bit as well, we might want to just call it a day.
Or maybe take more of a manager, like a technical director role somewhere.
Yeah.
So you could maybe see that at TFC, if he'd be happy to do that.
I was just floating him out as a candidate that might be looking to move on. If they want to go for, because I could see Lenarduzzi calling Bruce Arena and saying, what's it going to take to bring you up here? Because I think that's the kind of guy that they want. This guy's got nobody can question the credentials of our coach.
I'm not sure I could really interview him though. He reminds me of Droopy.
He is devoid of character, isn't he? Yes.
So you mentioned another name here that is seemingly untouchable in Vancouver in terms of this club because of what he did as a player and what he's done in terms of the whole saving the coaching and then saving the club during the dodgy.
He's an ace in the hole though, right? If I'm the PR branch of the Whitecaps connected with ownership and I've got Lenarduzzi, I fire him a month before the season, I'm on the front page of the newspaper, right? During the Canucks playoff run, he's the guy who you fire Lenarduzzi, boom, biggest media in the city. He's for sure.
Okay, of the 16,000 season ticket holders, how many of them?
Sorry, how much?
Well, 13,000.
13,000.
Oh, 13? Okay.
13,000.
We have to get technical.
And that's including season ticket equivalents.
Okay, you're missing my point here. So, of the 13,000 season ticket holders and the 16 or 17,000 regulars who come to every game, does that work better for you? Okay.
Yeah.
Of those people who show up, how many of them are emotionally attached to Lenarduzzi?
Well, it's not. I don't even think it's a matter of being emotionally attached to it. It's one of those things that your local grocery store closes down that you've taken for granted all these years, and you're like, whoa, right? Yeah. So, can you think of a person in Vancouver attached to soccer who's more known in the community than him?
And I'm not saying he should go.
Neither am I.
Valentine may be the only other guy.
Well,
And Zach.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, to be honest, and I don't know how. I honestly don't know what he does day to day. But to me, and this is not to be disparaging, but Lenarduzzi is essentially Carl Valentine in a tie.
No.
Okay, then I could be wrong. But that's I see him as a figurehead mostly, who does make decisions, but is mostly a figurehead at the top, and that's why he's a little bit untouchable. So one of the things that came up this week, talking about stuff that's happening off the field, is an article by Ben Massey, one of our, should I say friends? Were we allowed to say friends?
He's a friend of the show.
Sure.
Zach's calling people in Seattle.
He's been on the
friends,
show. Yeah. So
you gotta have friends ever, man.
Ben Massey, otherwise known as Lord Bob, wrote an article on Maple Leaf Forever about him not renewing his season ticket because he's just tired of the way MLS is operating, about how they're coming up with new rules. That day it was the League DP thing, but he also mentioned about,
which of course has now been refuted.
Refuted by the league, which we don't know. Yeah, we don't know if the league is just because a lot of people have said that it is true that what is going on. But okay, so it's the League DP thing. Plus, he mentioned the Seattle slush fund and everything like that. So, does MLS need to have more transparency when it comes to these kind of dealings, or is it just going to be the way it is that they don't really care what people think?
Well, I think for the growth of the league, people like to fantasy sports and all this online chats and all that sort of stuff. So you need to have information to do your armchair GM or whatever, right? So I think it's important to have that transparency for the league, so you can speculate on those things, and it creates a buzz, right? If people can talk about trades with some kind of understanding of how it actually works, right? No one even knows what the salary, you don't know what the salary cap is, because they have this number in there that's got so many loopholes through it that it's it doesn't exist, right?
I'm going to play a bit of devil's advocate here, because generally I agree with Ben. I think the league is completely out to lunch with how they're handling most of these situations, especially the Dempsey thing with the $9 million maybe paid by the league, not by the club, and all that kind of stuff. But the league, as it stands, is a business, and they own the majority of every single one of the teams, and they are working towards the best interests of the entire MLS brand. And the entire MLS brand is better if they can bring in players who are big name guys who, even if it's just a few 1,000 new fans will watch the next NBC soccer game on Saturday night because Dempsey's playing, and I want to see Dempsey playing. Well, that's great for the MLS. That's what they're going for. They're hoping that more people are going to tune in because of this stuff, and they want to keep bringing in these players. So to play devil's advocate, they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do in that they're building their brand of the MLS. Unfortunately, that comes at the expense of the have-nots, let's call it, in some cases.
The unfashionable clubs, like the Columbuses and the...
No, but the thing is the one thing is they put in these rules to say that everybody's got a shot. Essentially, when Dempsey came back, whoever the lowest team was at that point, they should have got a shot at him. And if they didn't get a shot, there should have been some kind of trade worked out. And there was no trade worked out for anybody.
Okay, but apparently if it's a DP signing, it doesn't have to go through the allocation roster, which is what other GMs, I think, was it Caleb Porter?
See, that's where all the confusion is coming from for that.
I agree. It's BS that we're even having to talk about this. Right. That we're having to, there's 5 guys in this room who are generally understanding of the league, and we follow it really closely, and we don't even know the exact workings of how this is all supposed to go. I agree that that's BS, but what I'm saying is that's why the league's doing it, and I sort of understand why they're doing it that way.
Well, in a natural evolution. So here, in my ideal situation of how it all plays out, is the Cosmos come in, they put together some $15 million team in NASL because there's no cap. They dominate the US Open Cup. They go into the CCL. Maybe they even win it and go to the World Cup Championship, right? World Club Championship. Maybe LA comes in with an NASL team, and you got your WHA NHL scenario. And that pushes the whole thing up, right? It pushes the whole North American soccer envelope, because you got the plucky underdog that's not really the underdog because they've got all the money, right? And then you've got your solid foundation with MLS, right? So MLS's role in that is maintaining that solid foundation and having that other entity come in and push the envelope, right? It could be Orlando. Maybe you have 4 or 5 teams in NASL that are totally non-viable over the long haul, like WHA wasn't, but at the same time creates a new and better, league with a different structure maybe at that point, right? But it's got to play out, I think. And I agree with you in that sense, in that, yeah, you have to have rules, you have to have a salary cap, but within that salary cap, you can't say, I don't know, Messi knocks up an American girl and wants to move to Chicago, and you're going to say, oh, sorry, we can't afford you here. No, you jump at that, and whatever you have to do, whatever rule you need to create to get him to playing in Chicago.
We'll pay, even if Chicago won't.
Yeah, I don't care what it is, right? So you've got to have that ability, but you've got to be open and honest about that. Here's our rules. This is how it plays out. This is allocation money. This is all this stuff. This is what the fans need to know. also know when we're presented with the opportunity to have probably one of the best American players in history come back and play in relatively his prime, then we're going to do it, right?
But you can't have a situation, which seems to happen every year, where there's at least one rule comes out that you've never heard of before. At the start of the season, it was all this, hey, we can use money to buy contracts without making them into designated players. Yeah, the whole retention fund thing, it's like that's ridiculous. No one had ever heard of that. And then we find out we've done it with Gerson Kofi. And it's like, what other things are out there that we have no idea about?
Yeah.
And the one of the biggest rules, dumbest rule changes was the fact that on the field was last year when they changed the whole tiebreaker situation from goal differential to goals scored for.
Yeah,
and then that affected
which people don't even know about.
And then that affected on-field performance. I can understand the off-field stuff, but now on-field you're affecting it. So that's like they got to set the rules and not change them in the middle of the year.
I don't like the fact that MLS own the clubs. Do you think there's ever going to be a situation where the league do not own the players, do not own the clubs, and they're all just ran independent?
There has to be. That has to be the exit strategy.
Yeah, 10, 15 years. I think it's going to take 10 years before they even try to do that. Once they get all the teams in there, establish them, and make sure everybody's strong on their feet and they have proper owners everywhere.
And I don't know if you have any, kind of hints on this from the FO side of things, but, a couple of years ago, there was apparently only like 3 of the clubs were actually making money every year. A lot of the clubs were pretty close, breaking even, almost, value of the club may be increasing, but they're operating at a slight loss. But they're not going to do that until not every single one of the clubs, but 80% of their clubs are going to be in the black every year. And they're comfortable saying, okay, even if you guys don't have the big bankroll behind you to support $5 million of losses every year, we want to make sure that your club is going to stay there for the next 20 years. Now we can sell you that, and they'll maybe do a tier approach. We'll sell you, 5% a year for the next 10 years.
You can still share funds like the NFL. They're individual owners, but they share a lot of the league revenues. So you can still share stuff and allocate stuff to different teams.
And have like a soft cap so that if they want to bring in, players above the cap, it just gets distributed amongst the group.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fine.
Michael, how did Caitlin appreciate her Christmas gift of allocation money?
She spent it wisely.
Okay.
I told her to knock herself out and just go and buy whatever she wanted, and she bought a lovely pair of invisible shoes.
Nice.
From Toronto.
Were they?
Yeah, no, I think
They broke.
I think with
She can get some at the supplementary store next year, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
She might have a second or a third choice. I'm not sure, depending on if they finish.
I think MLS is kind of like this necessary evil.
Or she can get imports as long as they got green cards.
She could pick up a pair of Clazuras. They're the hot property.
Do you let her buy one set a year that's over $100? Call it her designated shoe?
Yeah, and also I thought that we could maybe get her a pair of Hurtados, but there's no touch of them.
Oh my.
The Darren Matic shoes are great. You can run all day. Can't do much else with them, but you can run all day.
This is a whole segment into itself.
This segment has been brought to you by Shoe Warehouse.
Payless shoe. Okay, one question I had before I reiterate myself. Do the current owners of the Cosmos club brand, they don't have that kind of money, do they? The 15 million you're talking about? They're not that kind of people as far as I understand at the moment, right?
Who knows who they might get involved? Because this is a chance for them to, they're pissed off because they didn't get the franchise, so they can go and show up this new club by going and getting all these players.
But are you really able to get players to play NASL?
Well, if you're paying him twice what he's worth.
Yeah. Look at the photos going to China.
Yeah.
All those players that went to China, they're not going
So you look at, though, the players in the world, the whole world, and you look at what does it take to win the CONCACAF football championship.
Yeah.
Right? And then how much money does it cost to build that team?
Yeah.
That's
You
the
get all
question,
those
right?
players from Turkey and Romania that never get paid.
I remember Daniel Pranjic, when he was leaving Bayern, he was offered, I think, 5 million euros a year, and like all his costs were covered. It was like 500 like pure profit to play in China, which was like
It's like
asinine.
as well. God knows what he'd go for though.
Yeah. I think MLS is like a necessary evil as an entity right now, or as a league or whatever. And I love to hear. It's good to hear people say, "Yeah, I hope this is a season where this is necessary and it goes away." Because I think too many people I hear or read or see just say, "Oh, this is how it is, and it's always going to be this way." And I really hope not so much. Like I really hope what you're saying in terms of like maybe they'll be pressured into or pushed into a better structures. Obviously, as football supporters, there's a dream of things like promotion and relegation one day in North America that I think would be meaningful. Whether or not
A soccer stadium.
a football ground in Vancouver would be nice. Yeah, one day.
Yeah.
That's another.
I'd love to see how low down the pyramid Toronto could go. That would be fantastic.
I think here would be a slow promotion relegation where you have like just two
Well,
Oh,
That's
one thing I'll tell
only
you,
bright
I don't think promotion relegation will ever happen
No.
in North America. It's not the mentality of North America.
I don't think it will, but I long for it to.
It will kill one of those franchises that gets promoted or relegated. No, I mean like a Columbus. People will stop going
I
to
want to
Columbus
see
games.
Toronto FC
if
play
they go.
Nunavut United in the Ice Cap League or whatever, Iceberg Polar Bear division.
Sure.
It would be nice.
It's
It would be
late.
nice. It would be nice for things to get to a place though where that even if Columbus is in Division 3, that people care so much about their local football club that they're there to support. Maybe it's not the ground is packed, but it's at least
Yeah.
significant
They
enough
had
for
that
them.
really good rap song at the start of the season.
I think it's sad that Ben won't have a season ticket next year. As much as I think his perspective is not always the same as mine. Like I think it's too bad that his voice connected to the first team won't be there or won't be the same because he's not at every match. And I think I understand why and his principles behind that, but I think it's kind of like sad for our community here. Like I think that's not you don't want to see people drop out. You want to see
yeah.
you want to see it grow and yeah.
Yeah, that's the point of, building SFU and UBC and the Chill, building those clubs and having, that's another $5 not. But that's the point of that, is creating that, trying to be a part of it and growing that, and you need more people on board. But I think, with Ben, I mean, he's, he'll be at other events and others, so he'll still be a part of it. And
Oh, yeah, it's not like he's dying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Well, I think we've had a really good chat. We've kind of overran more. I'd hoped to make this a half-hour podcast, but we seem to be at an hour and 15 minutes. So it's been a good chat, and hopefully everyone at home has enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed making it.
Take your time, listen to it slowly. You don't have to listen to everything at once.
Yeah, and if you're driving in your car, remember you can get this on Stitcher Radio, and you can listen to it at your leisure. So I want to thank my guests for joining us. Head honcho Zach, head and hands honcho Zach. Tell us all about Curva.
It's great to be a part of a movement of supporters of the Vancouver Whitecaps. That is Curva Collective, and you can find us on Twitter at Curva Collective, or you can find myself personally at Zachary AM.
Definitely worth a follow, and if you want to enjoy a Whitecaps game for the rest of the season, try and get near the Curva.
Connect with us if you want tickets in the section.
Yep, Zach will get you sorted. You have to pay for it, but he'll get you sorted. And someone else that you can find down in the Curva section is Steven.
That's at SSSLAMO at Slamo on Twitter, and follow me if you like swearing.
And someone who doesn't have to swear to get his point across, but he does anyway. Jay, where can we find you?
I'm at J_Duke on Twitter, and I write occasionally for AFTN on Canadian Soccer News.
And my wonderful bearded co-host, Steve.
At Whitecaps Beat. That's enough. Have a good night.
You can also read his stuff on Prost America and on AFTN. He's shy about that for some reason. And my name's Michael. You can find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada. Read all our stuff online on Canadian Soccer News at aftn.ca. Drop us an email at aftncanada@hotmail.com. Just like to thank all the guys for giving up a couple of hours to do these 2 podcasts, which you have heard last week and this week. Big thanks to the O'Wells as well for doing our theme tune. Hopefully we can get a winning end to the season with the Whitecaps. We haven't covered that much in this episode because we recorded this before the San Jose game. So you're either happy, sad, looking forward to Montreal, or like me, depressed as usual. So until next time, take care and thanks for listening.
One day I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.